Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good evening. Now, our first group will give presentation about the Old English literature or at the Anglo Saxon period. Before we start our presentation, I will introduce my group first and from myself, my name is Rizky, Mutia, Anjami, and my friends Meri Agustina and also Putri, Arinie, Febriyana. So, our group will give you explanation about how English literature begin at starting from Anglo Saxon period. So, check this out.
The history of Old English period. A. Before English. The Celts who settled in Britain Island used Celtic as their communication language. A few people know it as Britons too. Then, after the Roman Empire came and ruled them, Britain was converted into Christianity, and the Romans must come back to their country, and Germanic tribes invited new Britons who couldn't defend themselves. The various dialects spoken by the Germanic tribes are known as Pre-Old English. The term England developed later from the tribal name English. The term English second referred to the Germanic tribes generally. Old English was not entirely united, and there still have four main dialects were predominant: Northumbrian, Mercian, Wessexian, Kentish, and nearly all of Old English literature was preserved in the Wessexian dialect. B. Period in history of English. The list of the period of English literature. The Old English or Anglo-Saxon in 450 until 1066 AD, Middle English 1066 until 1500 AD, Renaissance 1500 until 1649 AD, Commonwealth and Restoration 1949 until 1730 AD, Neoclassical or Augustan from 1730 until 1789 AD, Romantic 1789 until 1732 AD, Victorian 1832 until 1900 AD, the 20th century 1900 until 1939 AD, contemporary is from 1939 until now AD.
Okay, I will explain about Old English literature. In the 5th century, three invaders from Germanic tribes, Anglo Saxon and Jutes, came to seize Britons from Roman Empire. That time, they finally decided to settle in Britons and became powerful along the eastern coast of the island. They, Germanic tribes, built a new and common language which we call as Old English or Anglo-Saxon. So, Germanic tribes were the ancestor of English people. They created the Anglo-Saxon as England that lasts until 1066 AD. Later on, the language was developed to be the Middle English and the modern English. Next, the three tribes didn't get Christianized by the Celtic neighbor, the British former islander. Therefore, they still didn't have any written English language nor literature product at all before. In the 7th century, a branch of missionary from Rome came to Kent and got accepted by the ruler at the time and embraced Christianity in peace. The missionary allowed to build the first cathedral in Canterbury to study center of the Anglo Saxon people. They also got permitted to preach Christianity freely. Later on, there was Irish missionary came to North England and spread Christianity also there. Those missionaries not only spread Christianity, but also introduced to people the Roman alphabet to replace the rune or symbolic cut and scratches on wood and stone. People finally could write the stories or literature product to a written works. And since the development of language and literature in Anglo Saxon in England were great enough, they also have their own study centers which help people in learning about Old English more. There were 3 big centers of study in England, is Canterbury in the south, also York and Yarrow in the north. They became the great centers of Christianity and secular learning in the 7th and 8th centuries. There were also 3 great scholars who played a great importance in Europe at the time: Theodore of Yarrow, Archbishop of Canterbury, and Alvin of York. The glorious period of English learning didn't last long. England once again invaded in the end of 8th century by Norman or Scandinavian from Norway, Sweden, and Denmark called Danes of Viking people. The Anglo-Saxon age became Anglo-Saxon Viking age. The greatest King Alfred from the Wessex defeated the Danish leader Gurtin and converted him into Christianity at the Battle of Etadun in 878 AD. The Danes finally left the South and West England to King Alfred and retained the North and East England, which were called the Lockdown. King Alfred confided laws, built up a strong army and navy to oppose Viking raiders, and invited scholars from Europe and even Wales to the capital city, Winchester, to assist him in his revival of English in learning. The most important work of his age is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle.
Now, I will explain about the characteristic of Old English literature. Old English literature usually in a song and oral form, and the poetry or poems mostly about the memorable or history of the Germanic tribes. And then 2 most important traditions were the heroic tradition and elegiac tradition. The most famous piece of Anglo-Saxon literature is the epic poem Beowulf with long lines. Most of the literature products written by the Christian monks, because at that time only monks who can write and read the Anglo-Saxon alphabet. The written literature products reflected about 2 cultures. The first one is about the Christianity cultures and the heroic actions. Most of the texts from this period were anonymous. And the first product song from this era was Cadam Hymn it's about a song, a praising song to God that performed at the church or every monastery. And the influences of Old English, majority from the modern English, from the foreign English, not from the original Old English roots, and then written in the Celtic tongues, once prevalent in Cornwall, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, called the Celtic French, is treated separately. And now I will explain about Beowulf and long poems. As I explained before, I described before, Beowulf is the first heroic poem, the highest achievement of Old English literature, and the earliest European vernacular epic. There was no evidence of a historical Beowulf, but some characters, sites, and events in the poem could be historically verified. The poem didn't appear in print until 1815. It was preserved in a single manuscript that dates to circa 1000 and is known as the Beowulf manuscript. Beowulf has about 3,000 lines. It's a story about a brave young man from southern Sweden, and he was helping Hrothgar, the king of Danes that time, to defeat a terrible monster called Grendel from attacking the people of his kingdom. Beowulf succeeds in defeating the monster, but Grendel's mother, the monster's mother, took a revenge toward Beowulf and want to kill him. In the end, Beowulf finally could kill the mother of the monster, but then after 50 years passed, the same story happened, and there was a dragon who can breathe fire that attacked the people in Beowulf kingdom that time, and he finally back to combat, back to war with the monster, with the dragon, but unfortunately, from this war, from this fight, he was hurting himself, and finally Beowulf died. And his people, we got that time, finally have a statement, story and poem that reminding him and the people at that time about how heroic Beowulf to defend them. And since then, Beowulf is a poem that remind people to about how Beowulf died as a hero. Most of English poems actually had long lines because they were about real battles and heroes that they heard the story from their old generation. It also written in rich and powerful language, full of new words, new tones, and new rhythms, also with so many images of light, color, and action. And about Old English prose, as explained before, King Alfred was not only the greatest king, but also the great literary figure in Old English literature era. He also regarded as the founder of English prose, prompted by his desire to educate his people. He himself finally learned to read and write from scholars and also from the great teacher from monasteries and churches. So he could and also translated the translation himself, so his people can read it themselves too. Besides wrote the translation literature from monks or Bedi, King Alfred also told people to collect every important notes of event or incident that happened in the kingdom at the time, and every notes got collected for 2 centuries even after King Alfred passed away, and also known as Anglo Saxon Chronicle, which is also known as the first monument of English prose. And conclusion about our group presentation today: Old English literature, or also known as Anglo-Saxon period, was the first literature and culture that Britain people got due to the invasion of 3 Germanic tribes that time: Anglo, Saxon, and Jutes. The 3 tribes were from the northern Germany and the same kind of Teutonic. These tribes were formerly barbarians who worshipped heathen gods because they were have faith in God. So when the Rome missionaries came, they easily accepted the new culture. And since the missionaries get allowance from Anglo-Saxon king, the literature there got improved into a written literature period. The theme of Old English literature are security, both for the individual and society, and in religious faith. This literature gave comfort or provided reflection. Usually, poems were sung in the hall of a castle, and these songs and poems were passed from generation to generation before they were written down. Thus, the spoken tradition led to first tradition of written literature. At the same time, Old English was beginning to develop into a different language called Middle English, closer to the English we know today. Thank you for your attention, and I hope our presentation is useful for all of you who watch and listen to our presentation. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye bye. See you later.